Alright, and welcome back. So here we are. We had to end the episode last time. It was just getting way too long. We had just killed Theos here. We're about to explore his soul. And we're in Brackenberry. It had been a maze of narrow corridors. You come into a room standing now, new, pristine, filled with people, thousands of them. Theos stands at the machine, and you are one with him now. You look out of the crowd, faces shriveled old men. You turn back toward the machine, your breast constricted. You take your place in front of it and place your hands upon a large mechanical disc at the base of the great crystal column and speak a single word. The entire room shakes now with the force of accelerating machine. One by one, the tendrils disappear, leaving ashen effigies where people once stood, many of them disintegrating to gray heaps under the stress of tremors. You look above to the larger pillar, and a glowing spherical mass has begun to coalesce atop the column. Let's get to some conversation here. You sense a listlessness to Theos' soul, an overwhelming fatigue that hinders its immediate escape and makes it invulnerable to manipulation. You feel as though your victory has given you some kind of hold over it. You're able to do with it as you please. Return it to the cycle. You remember this, Theos. Remember that no man can hide the truth forever. Tear a soul apart. I do not envy you. Banish soul to Brithiem. Theos extended, there is no forgiveness for your deeds. Destroy all memories contained within. Your memories make you a slave to your own past. Tear a soul apart. You cause me great suffering, Theos. You do not deserve to exist. Um, let's destroy all memories contained within.
No! You cannot. You will have no reminders. You will not remember the message we wrote on his fragmented bones and carved into his flesh. The lesson we burned into his soul.
You've given him a clean tablet, and a chance to be of use in his next life. This is a kindness Theos does not deserve, but perhaps whatever merit is in him will be known to the world the next time around. Let us hope his old nature dies with his
You return to the landscape, Theos memories. You focus on a vision of pure emptiness, and your will becomes a swirling vortex around you. The storm builds. The last thing you see is a white void, boundless in all directions, fettered by shackles and experience and doubt. Silence that follows, a single word echoes in your mind, a word you spoke when you were with Theos in the ancient memory. You realize it was a word that activates the machine. Alright, now I gotta activate the machine. As you approach the machine, the sun blazes, a shoal on your head. Standing next to it is a malnourished man clad,
You know something of quiet servitude, Watcher. Groveling and simpering before the gods whose aid you need, so that when they finally raise you to a place of power, you can seize what you desire. You have labored at the pleasure of others. That shriveled hag in Hadrit House, those preening soldiers with more taste for silk than steel, the wretched tribesmen playing out their fantasies of grandeur. And then you cowered and knelt before the gods themselves, begging one paltry favor and receiving riddles and visions in response. And now the gods give you orders and commands, even while you set out to fix what they cannot. Yet what have they offered you?
5 copper says he's about to sell you on his own agenda. Only Whale knows that we might be. If I were you, I'd tell him the other gods offered a dozen Nubulastas and see if you can match that and haggle from there.
The exiled queen is not an ungrateful patron. Finish the work Theos began. Strengthen Woodica with these souls and allow her to become the most powerful of all the gods, with you as her
I've been working against Wodoka this whole time. Why would she thank me now after I've defeated... No, helping Wodoka would mean the secrets of the gods stay hidden. Safely hidden, yes, from the violent overlords who would cease to fear punishment in the next life, from the heavy-handed masters. I've been working against her. What do you mean favored? the recipient of Wodika's blessing, she is always at a place for mortals' particular merit. The only reward I wish is the joy of pulling the bloody shards of her broken crown from my staff. Finish with her trial. So says your companion who's been abandoned by his own god. Do you really trust him to make alliances for you? I've explained the alternative. Watcher, continue as a pawn in the gods, or as a partner of one. I'll consider what you said.
Yes. Consider well the prosperous lives and the power that awaits you. I'm certain you'll choose.
Okay, let's give it a save. And let's give it a go. Alright, with your companions bearing witness, you step to the place where Theos once stood before his people long ago. The great machine lies in front of you, idle, ready. Speak the command to activate the machine. You have only moments before the souls will be sent into the Ardra vein. This will be your only chance of redirecting them. Send the souls back to the reincarnation cycle. Return the souls to the bodies where they were intended for. Anthropically disintegrate the souls, ending their existence. Disperse the essence of existing souls to Drywood to strengthen them. Allow the souls to pass through the vein to Wodika. Disperse the souls to an unknown location. I like that one. We're doing that. Close your eyes. Expand your perception outward, taking an immense totality of tens of thousands of souls orbiting the chamber. You grasp the souls as tenuous. You find yourself fighting to keep them all within your influence. You can feel them slipping away as the machine gains speed. A brief moment comes when it feels as though your hold on all of them at once, and their force is so great it feels as though you'll tear you apart. In that moment, you dedicate your entire being to bending their orbit, channeling their flow in a new direction. And they go.
At your command, the ancient device became your instrument, spinning to life with deafening resonance and gathering up the swirling essence like thread on a great spindle. There, in the pale pulsing glow of the machine that set you on this path long ago, you summoned all your strength, focusing on your objective and blocking out all else. With a single concussive blast that rocked the chamber and sent you tumbling to the ground, you freed the souls from their stasis. Exhausted, your consciousness slipping away, your last sight was of the machine, dark and dormant. Then your eyes closed, and sleep welcomed you at long last. After coming to and searching for some time, you discovered the route Theos used to enter Sun and Shadow, and embarked on a long and arduous ascent back to the surface. You emerged in Ter Evron after days of tunneling through the rubble Theos had left behind, and when you stepped into the daylight, you were faced with a different Dyrwood than the one you had left. At your direction, the souls of the Hollowborn, long lost to the people of Dyrwood, were sent to a place or places unknown, for reasons as mysterious as the god who suggested it. No sooner had the mystery of their whereabouts been solved than it was renewed, a new riddle for someone yet to be revealed, or perhaps for no one at all. For the people of Dyrwood, the question would linger as it always had, for even the truth was beyond belief. One day, the Hollow Births had stopped with as little explanation as they had started. For all their joy at the legacy's end, Dyrwoodans would have to content themselves with their own theories as to the how and why of it all. But perhaps this was as well intended. It is said that Galawain is the enforcer of the guards, and is known to hunt down those who wrong them. To wrong Galawain, then, is truly to wake the beast, and the Father of Monsters took great umbrage at your broken promise to him. Along with Mogren and Abidan, Galawain embarked upon a more direct approach to claiming his quarry. In the months that followed, the frontier settlements of Dyrwood were inexplicably attacked by packs of beasts and monsters, suddenly organized and unafraid to approach Kith on their own land. Many such villages were all but destroyed by the time troops could be dispatched from local garrisons. Those that weren't destroyed by the beasts of Galawain often found themselves at the mercy of the fires of Mogren. A dry spell throughout Dyrwood led to a rash of forest fires on a scale not seen since the War of Black Trees, and many settlements paid the price for their proximity to the wilderness. In the cities, meanwhile, dabblers in animancy who had placed souls into golems and other moving vessels soon found that their creations had risen up against them. Such constructs terrorized their surroundings, killing indiscriminately and often in great numbers before being subdued. Lord Radric's zeal had brought him back to life once, but it would not do so again. Radric's destruction at your hands spelled the end of his suffocating rule over Gilded Vale and the surrounding area. In his absence, the village prospered, becoming a popular destination for new settlers anxious to leave Defiance Bay after the riots. Without a nearby ruler, it also grew more wild, with many settlers moving on as soon as they'd arrived, turned off by lawlessness that was excessive even by Deerwooden standards. Nevertheless, despite the challenges of living there, Gilded Vale had survived, and would continue to survive for the foreseeable future. Following the assassinations of Duke Avar Wolfgren and Lady Webb, Defiance Bay was thrown into political upheaval. In the ensuing weeks, the streets had become the domain of looters and blackguards. Few dared to step outside their own doors alone or unarmed. But order was soon re-established by the Knights of the Crucible, who, despite their depleted numbers, had gained favor in the public eye for their role in unraveling Widewind's legacy. They were quickly reinforced by returning forces from Fleetbreaker Castle. Having seen both the ills and the promise of Animancy, internally the Knights quietly began a more cautious exploration of the new science. Depleted in numbers but bolstered by their newly forged stock of soul-augmented weaponry and a small contingent of forged knights, the Knights of the Crucible would soon become an order few in Defiance Bay would dare to cross. But the opportunity to build upon their newfound power proved too great a temptation for the High Justice. What was at first a measured approach to Animancy soon gave way to a rapid buildup of armaments. The High Justice would eventually seize control of the city for his order and place Defiance Bay under indefinite martial law. Though the machine atop Ter Noaneth had been drained of its accumulated essence, the machine had not seen its last use. Heritage Hill was rebuilt, and no sooner had the first families moved in to resettle the district than members of the Leaden Key, acting under standing orders from their Grand Master, climbed the tower and reactivated the machine. The initiates slew a handful of the new settlers under cover of night and watched as history repeated itself, the victims reanimating and devouring the survivors. After this second incident, the district would remain abandoned. The Duke's assassination at the apparent hands of an Animancer had caused catastrophic rioting in the streets of Defiance Bay. But those who had escaped the melee and the palace hearings remembered the testimonies of the strange guest who had shown up that day and absolved Animancy, implicating the Leaden Key instead. The rumor spread quickly, and soon the popular belief was that the assassin had been a Leaden Key spy. When the legacy had lifted, people came to see it not as a sign that the riots had been according to the gods' wishes, as Theos had hoped, but as a confirmation that Animancy had never been the source of the problem in the first place. Deerwoodens instead convinced themselves that the riots had somehow purged Defiance Bay of Leaden Key spies, and that the end of Widewind's legacy was their well-deserved reward. The rage against Animancers was quickly forgotten, and those who had survived were permitted to return to Brackenbury Sanitarium and rebuild it so they might resume their studies. The fortress of Cadnua emerged as a bastion of security in the midst of an untamed land, becoming the envy of every Thane and Earl in Deerwood. Legend grew over time of its impregnability, and stories of formidable invaders easily scattered by the keep's defenses became popular around the hearths of Deerwoodenians. Likewise, it also became a beacon to travelers, merchants, and visiting dignitaries alike. Reputed as the finest fortress in all Deerwood, people would journey from near and distant lands alike to experience its fabled hospitality and grandeur. After the death of the Master below, a strange quiet fell over the endless paths of Ardnua. The attacks on the fortress above ceased, Ardnua's silent titan the closest remaining thing to a master in its musty, forgotten passages. Pallegina had missed the opportunity to complete her mission from the Duke's Bells. The Deerwood's trade with Air Glanfath remained weak, but the Valian republics were unable to enter Glenfathan markets. For her repeated insubordination and loss of lucrative trade, Pallegina was cast out of the Brotherhood of Five Sons. She traveled north of the Eastern Reach, where she tried to avoid trouble as a caravan guard, but she could not escape the strange looks and unwanted attention her appearance brought. Adair chose not to return home. Still conflicted as to his role in the Saints' War and unsure of his place in the Deerwood, he took a ship to Adir and reunited with his parents. There, he resumed the quiet lifestyle he had grown accustomed to in his years as a farmhand in Gilded Vale. When the dust settled in sun and shadow, Aloth looked upon the remains of Theos Ixarchanon, his former master. He saw where the Grandmaster had gone wrong and what would be required to undo the harm Theos had wrought. With a flick of his wrist, he burned Theos's robe, headdress, and every other symbol of the man's power. Never again, he vowed, should Kith live in fear and blind obedience to an authority they did not understand. Armed with the knowledge and courage he had gained on his journeys with the Watcher, he set out on the long and lonely task of dismantling the Leaden Key. With the Watcher's goals accomplished and his own vows fulfilled, Kana Rua sailed back toward Rawatai, thinking on the lessons his travels had provided him. By the time he landed at Tekoa, he understood what his path must be. Standing before the Lore College, Kana Rua explained that the tablet he sought had been destroyed, and so a true interpretation of the Tonvi Oratoa could no longer exist. The people of Rawatai would have to create their own. He described the many strange things he had seen in his travels, and announced his intent to pursue the accumulation of knowledge abroad, seeking answers to new questions. True to his word, Kana soon set sail on yet another expedition, and in Tekoa, his passionate accounts inspired many to follow in his footsteps. Durrance continued to blame Woodica for the atrocities of the Saints' War. Believing Magrin to have been a pawn in the machinations of the Queen that was, and feeling that Theos's expulsion had been a step towards reconciliation with his goddess, Durrance tried for a time to reopen communication with her. When only silence came, he took it as a condemnation of his continued existence. Ultimately, he built a pyre and threw himself upon it, using his own shattered staff as kindling. After 5 years of searching for Persoc, Sagani's 4-month journey home felt longer still. The Deerwood, Aer Glonfoth, the Valian Republics became places on a map, endless expanses of green between her and Nasitok. Her homecoming was celebrated by all of Masuk, yet it was the reunion with Kalu and their children that truly brought her joy. She relinquished her role in the long hunts, and ever after, she and Itumak spent their days working in the village and their nights at her hearth. She watched her own children and their children grow and thrive. When she finally passed, she lay surrounded by the affection and tears of 5 generations. For you, the death of Theos brought an end to your waking visions and a silence to the whispers of the past. In their absence, you were able to sleep. The questions of a distant lifetime ceased to trouble your soul. All that remained was what to make of the answer. But at the moment, there was little to be done, and the matter would have to wait. A long journey loomed ahead.
Dun dun dun. So, in hindsight, I'm not completely happy with some of the decisions that were made. However, I'm very interested in seeing, oh god, I really hope they don't list every single backer. I'm very interested to see yeah, they did. Jesus. I'm interested to see how my companions apparently dispersing and Durrance actually dying is going to affect who I get on my team for the expansion here. So that should be interesting to find out. I mean, where does this just take me back to my last save? So right before we fought Theos. Hmm. It brings me back here. Interesting. Okay, well with that, we have completed the main campaign, so I'm going to go ahead and figure out exactly the best way to go ahead and start our next pre-end game. Okay, so it automatically saved that for us. So this was before we jumped down in the Sun and Shadows, so this is what we're going to have to use in order to play White March. Okay, well great. Well with that, I want to thank you for watching. This will be the end of the normal Pillars of Eternity series, and I will be picking up the expansion, which will be labeled The White March Part 1, very soon. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the expansion.